Welcome everybody to another IC Live. It's January 23rd, um, day seven of our 75 lives. Appreciate everybody joining and all the support, feedback, everything. So just appreciate you guys. Looking forward to diving in today. Actually, right before bed, the Lord kind of put on my heart this topic of 8 things I wish I knew before I started my business. And so we'll get in that today. It's just things that looking back over the last 7 years, being like, man, if I knew that back then, that would have made all of this a lot smoother, a lot easier. So I just want to share that with you. And whether you've got a business and maybe these are some principles you could adopt now, whether you're starting a business and these are things you could start to think about and start to work on now before you get going in your business. So we're just going to have kind of a general conversation around that. I thought it was interesting. Yesterday, we were talking about trivial pursuits and putting the, first things first. And actually had a conversation with my son last night, and he actually said that's something he was thinking about was, he's 10 years old, and he said, I think I'm wasting too much of my time in video games, and I need to apply it more in sports and soccer. And I thought that was pretty interesting that the thing that we were discussing came on his mind, and it was something he wanted to talk to me about yesterday. So I thought that was pretty awesome. So anyway, looking forward to digging in today. Again, go to intentcompany.com/live for all links and social media stuff, everything you need to kind of follow along and go through everything we got going on. We are in the midst of 75 live broadcasts, 12 p.m. Central Time, Monday through Friday. If you ever, if you're hopping on this and you're like, okay, why are you doing this? What's the idea? Go back to day 1, the last Monday, 2 Mondays ago, and that'll give you kind of an idea. So when you go to intentcompany.com/live, make sure you check out, some of the things we got going on. We've got the Feed the Hungry program where we are giving away one of our best, discounting one of our best products, 90%, never discounted it before. All the money we are then just taking and giving it directly to Feed the Hungry. So just a great way for us to support an awesome cause and also get a really great tool in your hands. Make sure you also sign up for the Intent Company group. You get access to our private social platform, bunch of trainings, tools, all kinds of cool stuff in there. Also, if you're a business that already has a decent client base, I definitely recommend you check out our WOW campaign blueprint. This is basically how you maximize the relationship you have with your current customers, turning them into raving fans. And then lastly, go ahead and check out our customer journey assessment. If you hear us talk about marketing a lot, we talk a ton about the customer journey is really the main principle that you should be looking at when you're thinking about marketing your business. How do you bring people through a process to make them aware you exist, make them like you, make them buy things from you, and then turn them into raving fans? And really that's all there is to marketing. There's a lot of pieces and parts and things that make that up and different things you can do, but if you have a reliable system that gets new people to know who you are, your marketing actually gets them to like you more, it leads them into the sales process, and you get a higher conversion rate because of the marketing you're doing. And then you have a system that turns them into raving fans, people who buy again and again, leave positive reviews, tell everybody they know about you. That's it right there, I'm telling you. All right. So, I think I got a little allergy, so excuse me if I'm dabbing my nose here. We are in Tampa, Florida this week. It's been awesome. We've been at the Transfiguration Conference at the River Church in Tampa, Florida. We got a few of the Intent team here, my family here. It's pretty awesome. Great experience. And trying to get in as much of that stuff as I can as possible. That was actually one of the things I didn't... Ooh, kicking that camera again. There we go. That was one of the things I wanted to mention yesterday when I talked about investing versus spending. A lot of times we don't see the value in like ongoing education or like just getting around people that are operating at a higher level. And I am a huge proponent of conferences, of retreats, things like that. Like get around people that motivate, inspire, push you. It's a huge thing, and that's why we're here. That's why we took I'm not working as much as I usually do. I got people down here with me, but I believe that this investment is it's worth pouring into these things, because this is seeds that are sown that will then produce a harvest. It's the difference between investing or sowing versus spending. And so make sure that you're doing that. Like look out this year, think about the different skills, different things you're looking to grow into, and where could you dive in? Where's a place that you could go and invest time, resources, and really put yourself in that place, because that's what's gonna get you the next level. You can't keep doing the same thing. You gotta push yourself to higher levels. You gotta get around people that are thinking differently, trying new things, elevating where you're going. So as I mentioned, the theme for today is 8 things I wish I knew before I started my business. And so last night this just kind of hit me, and so I just started journaling some ideas. So I'm just going to throw some things at you. This might even be I might need to turn this into a blog post or something, but this could be a living, breathing document, something that kind of grows a little bit. But again, whether you already have a business, again, some of these ideas might be like, yeah, I still need to adopt that. I will say these things I'm going to go through, some of them I get now, but I still haven't implemented fully. But for any aspiring entrepreneurs, anybody thinking about starting a business, or maybe you've got like a little gig on the side or something like that, these are going to be, I think, some really solid principles for you to be thinking about and investing in, going back to yesterday, investing in, to see a healthy business, a healthy business, healthy life. So let's dig in. Number 1, business skills are way more important than the work that you do. If you think about how most businesses are started, I don't know percentages, things like that, but it's pretty common where you've become, you work for someone, you get really good at something. You've done all the work, you've become an expert, you kind of feel like you're like hitting this ceiling, if you will, in your ability to do the thing you do, right? You could be a roofer, plumber, you could be an accountant, you could be a marketer, whatever the case may be, and you've been working for someone for a long time, and you're like, I got this. Like, I'm excellent. I'm like top. I could totally do this as a business. And that's how most businesses start. You go and get excellent at something, and then you decide that you're going to go out on your own to do it. And yes, you need to be able to deliver the goods. But to have a successful business, it's funny, is it actually has less to do with the work that you're doing and more to do with business skills. Now, there is, again, a barrier of entry where like you've got to be able to do the job that you said you're going to do. But even at some point, like eventually, like you're going to be doing it less and less. You're going to be bringing other people on to do the thing that you do. And so business in itself has a whole different set of skills. There's so many different things like marketing, sales, management, leadership, business accounting, economics. And those skills are actually the skills that will translate to having a really successful business or not. Not that you're really good at like SEO or that you're really good at plumbing or whatever the case your skill set may be. So if you are an aspiring entrepreneur and you do have the skill set that you want to bring to the market, I would say start to learn now. Start to take courses and read books and get to be familiar with how do I get a customer? How do I get a customer to give me money? If you think that's actually the most difficult thing in all of business, is to get someone to trust you enough where they pull out their wallet, they pay you money in exchange for your goods, your service. And that in itself is a skill set. The skill set of persuasion, the skill set of storytelling, the skill set of presenting an offer, negotiating. All of those things are different skills that you may be like, oh, that has nothing to do with roofing. And it's like, yeah, but you think about this. You could be the absolute best, like literally the best at what you do. You could be the absolute best, again, roofer, plumber, whatever, I don't know why I keep using construction analogies, but maybe somebody's watching. It's in that space. You could be the best at it. But if you can't convince somebody to pay you, you have no business. You have no business. Likewise, I bet you know of people that are actually mediocre in the delivery of products and services. Maybe in your sphere of influence, again, whatever thing you're doing, you might know someone, a business that's like, man, you know what? They're actually not even that good at what they do, but they actually are good at getting people to pay them money, and so they actually have a successful business. It might even frustrate you. Like you might actually look at it and be like, how do these guys make money? How do these guys have all these customers? Well, it's because they've actually developed skills around marketing and sales, client retention, things like that have made them business successful, even though maybe their product and services isn't at the highest quality. So I'm in no way trying to tell you to like ignore what you do, like in the craft that you have, and you want to be excellent, you want to do those things. But having a successful business is actually more dependent on business skills than it is your products and services. I may have used this analogy before on these lives, but I've heard it said before, there's a big difference between Joe the plumber and Joe's plumbing. Joe the plumber is an individual who's good at plumbing, one-man shop, maybe his wife, takes phone calls, schedules appointments, sends off invoices, but a very small shop. And he works all day long, works really hard. He's the one on call. He's putting it in, working hard, doing plumbing all day long, and maybe makes a couple $100,000 a year, $200,000-$300,000 a year, but he's really limiting himself. He's working very hard and you know what? It is better than just having a job. You can easily 5x your income by doing this, but it's not really a business. You don't really have a business. You basically own a job, and you've managed it in a certain way where, you make more money than everybody else doing the job. But then you got like Joe's Plumbing, and Joe's Plumbing, has 50 plumbers working for him. They've got a fleet of trucks. They have a dispatch team. They've got an app. They got all this stuff. And the guy who owns Joe's Plumbing literally doesn't need to know anything about plumbing. He actually doesn't. He literally would not need to know anything about plumbing. Why? Because he's hired people who know. Because that's the thing. There's always more people available that are good at doing a job than there are at running businesses. Always more. So, I've heard the phrase, doers are a dime a dozen. Now, it's obviously an exaggeration. Good people could be hard to find, and you got to pay them accordingly. But if you're really good at business skills, you're really good at marketing, you're really good at sales, you're really good at getting people to pay you, then you could actually work less hours doing less physically strenuous work and make 10 times the income. It's at least a 10x difference. If there's a 10x leap or a 5x leap from like just being an employee to like being we call solopreneur or like a contractor or something, there's at least a 10x leap from becoming a legitimate business person. Because you can scale, you can multiply, you can expand yourself. There's only so many gigs you can take when you do it by yourself. But again, when you have a team, you have a system, you've got all these different things in place, you can scale at a greater degree. So yeah, sales, marketing, management. How do you manage people? How do you keep people accountable? How do you manage time? How do you, like, that's a skill. That's a skill. And I'm about to say in a second, I'm going to sound like I'm contradicting myself a little bit, but not everyone, if you're a business owner, you shouldn't necessarily be a manager. In fact, I'm a terrible manager, but I understand management. I understand what needs to be done, and I understand who would be good at being a manager, and so I can go get that person and lead that manager to do what they need to do. So understanding these skills doesn't necessarily mean that you're the one who does them. But you have to understand the skill in order to get the right person in the right seat. Leadership is another one of those. Leadership is different than management. Management is this idea of making sure things are done on time, on budget, right pieces in place. Leadership is, actually, you know what? I'm going to give you an example. Actually, I have a slide somewhere with this, but since we've been on this home services kick, let's continue the analogy. So if you think about a saw or a tool, a carpenter, a contractor, and an architect. Those are really the only 4 roles in a business. So let me share what I mean. So if you think about a tool, and I'm not trying to say that like employees are tools like in a negative way, but if you think about a tool itself, like a saw has a very specific use case. It does a very specific thing. It does it over and over again, and it's really not good at doing anything but what it was designed to do, right? Like if you wanted to, hang drywall with a saw, that is a terrible tool to use for the job, and you're not going to get very far. You're not going to be very productive, and you're probably it's going to be worse, right? So there's some people in your company that are kind of like that, right? These are usually like your execution people. They do a very specific job. They do it over and over again. They're good at it, but they don't really have a lot of expertise outside of it, right? So that's like your first. That's usually like your entry level or your kind of specialist. Doesn't even necessarily need to be somebody who's like low wage. Like a neurosurgeon is quite specific in what they do, and they're compensated accordingly, but they're very one track. This is what they do. They're singularly focused. They have a single skill. Tools. Next step you have is a carpenter. A carpenter is someone who's like able to use various tools at various times to get a job done, right? They have a little bit more understanding of strategy and technique, and like they can see how things are put together. And so they're able to go and select the right tool at the right time, work together with other people to go and create something. And that's usually like your maybe like middle management or your like consultative, strategic people in your organization. They have multi skills. They know how to use multiple things, and if they're not, they also have some gifting in being able to grab, other tools and people on the team to get the job done. Then you get the contractor, and the contractor is like your manager, right? What does a contractor do? A contractor gets the job done on time, on budget. You're probably laughing. You're like, no contractor's ever on time or on budget. That's in essence what they're supposed to be doing. All right, they're supposed to manage all the different resources. We got the place, we got the supplies coming, we got this much money, this team's coming on this time, that time. It's like they're the manager. They organize all of the different pieces and parts, all the carpenters, all the experts, all the tools, all the stuff, and they align it and they manage the timing and the budget of those things to get the job done, supposedly on time, on budget. And they're, like your management, your And they're very important, very, very, very important. And you can see there's kind of like these tiers in the organization. Now, here's the thing though, there's different giftings. That manager, that contractor doesn't need to know how to like wire a house or put in plumbing or do it. It doesn't have to. He just needs to know who can do it, make sure they're there, make sure they do it right, do it on budget, do it on time. So it's a different skill set. Managers need a different skill set than a tool or a carpenter does. And an architect. The architect is able to look off in the distance, see the complete empty lot, this vacant thing, and in their mind, see a house, see a building. They get to create in their mind what it could be like. And that's usually like the entrepreneur. That's the visionary of the company. They're able to look out and say like, you know what, I see this happening and I can see it before it happens. And that's a completely different skill set. And that's a completely different responsibility. So you need all those pieces. You need the architect, you need the contractor, you need the carpenter, and you need the tools. Again, not in a derogatory way. And when you get all those pieces together, you can build something beautiful. So, what skills, what things could you invest in? And then the last one I mentioned briefly, which I'll say again, is business accounting. You got to understand the basics. You got to understand cost of goods sold. You got to understand cash flow. You got to understand life cycles of invoicing and financing and all those different things. And I'm terrible at that stuff. But you need to have a basic idea of it and be able to have the right people in place, to manage that stuff. All right, number 2, build systems. The other problem with being kind of like this solopreneur or this contractor getting in there is you kind of do everything on your own and you do everything upstairs. Or even when you hire someone, right? You might hire a really great office manager or somebody who does something and like they're great at it, but they have all of it upstairs. They're just doing it out of their own mind, and there's not a clear system. Now the problem without having a clear system is that it's not repeatable and it's hard to manage. So like one thing I wish I knew when I first started was creating simple processes for things. And what's the process that happens when an invoice comes in? What's the process that happens when we sign a new customer? What's the process that happens after we deliver the goods? And be more intentional about how we do that. Now, again, like for me, and I think one of the things I'm going to talk about, later on is sticking to your strengths. This might not be your strength, so you got to get the right person in place to do that. But you got to think systems scale, people don't. And the more that what you do, how you do it, your business itself is wrapped up into individuals and their giftings and the way they do things, you're going to stunt the growth of your business. So even if you do bring somebody on who's amazing, even if you do bring on someone that is super gifted, is all upstairs, have them document it. Create a process, create a list, step 1, step 2, step 3. And follow that, because systems scale, people don't. So that's the third one. I'm going to put these kind of together to talk about them. But like invest in people. That'd be number 3. Number 3 thing I wish I knew before I started is invest in people. Get a team. Don't do everything on your own. That's probably out of all of these, that's probably the thing I wish I did the most is, is invested in people sooner. Gut people. Get a good tax person. Get a good bookkeeper. Like these people that know their stuff, that they're the ones that do what they do. Get those types of resources in place. And maybe you can't do it right away, but at least have a plan and a goal that you're going to put these people in place. They're going to build these systems, because that will take so much off of your plate. And that's the thing is, you got to focus on what you do best. You got to put people in place that do what they do best. Now I'm jumping all over the place because that's another one of these. I guess we'll put that together. I don't know if that's number 4. but stick to what you do best, personally and corporately. As a company, do what you do best. That's the problem with young companies, young businesses, is you want to say yes to everyone. Whatever they want to get done, you're just going to do it. But there's certain work that is right in your sweet spot that you've got good margins on, you've got the processes, you got the people in place, it flows. And you can just easily do a bunch of that. When you start going outside of that, then you've got no system in place. You don't have people that have the skill sets in place. That's probably, man, all of these things are huge. That was a big issue that I got into. I'm a strategy guy. I'm like a big thinking strategy guy, marketing system strategy. So I'd get with a client and like I'd come up with ideas that I never even had before. New ideas, new things. And the problem is when that's what you're doing, you're literally recreating the wheel over and over again. And then for me, I was the only person who saw the vision, so then I have to be materially involved in everything. So now rather than creating, a repeatable product that other people can do, now I'm the one that's doing all of the work because I just invented this thing. I have a bad habit of doing that. So stick to what you do best as a company, and then individually, what are your unique superpowers? Where are you in the tool, carpenter, contractor, architect? Invest in people, put people in each of those places that are gifted at it, desire it, want it, right? Last week we talked about talents, ambitions, and skills. Make sure they have those three things. They're in that role. Work with them to create systems inside of each of those roles, and then focus on those unique things that you do. And then create a process. Anybody who's doing creative work, that's one of the big difficulties is to systemize your unique offering rather than making it always so abstract. Because the more abstract it is, the less scalable it is. Skip this one. In this context of people, hire slow, fire fast. Hire slow, fire fast. What do I mean by that? I mean, when you're going to bring somebody on your team, take your time. Get to know them, have interviews, definitely pray, be led by God. Make sure that they're a cultural fit more than even maybe not more than, they need to be able to do the job, but like I've always found when I was hiring somebody that their coachability, like what kind of character do they have? Do they have the character of being coachable? Are they good at collaborating? And do they show signs of just having internal ambition? Those three were really big for me. Because you need to be able to learn, you need to be able to grow, you need to be able to expand. So you need to have that sense of humility, coachability. You need to work well as a team. You need to work well with others. And you need to have a drive. If I have to pump you up to want this every day, then I'm just taking time away from myself. There has to be an internal fire. So make sure you spend the time to get to know the people. If you have done your core values, I think it's Traction by Gino Wickman. He talks about how hires need to be cultural or core value fit. So if you got 4 or 5 core values as a company, everybody in your team has to match those core values. And then what they do, their seat that they sit in, needs to be based on their giftings and their skills. So there's 2 sides of it. It's culture and it's the skill set. So another one here, I think this is 6. just like you shouldn't work with anyone on your team, you need to really not work with anyone as a client. You know, it's funny, and you know, I've been in business for like 19 years, consulted a lot, worked with a bunch of different companies, been around a lot of entrepreneurs, and this axiom is always true. The clients that pay you the most amount of money are the easiest to work with. The clients that pay you the least amount of money are the hardest to work with. And I guess you could go even past even the financial side. It's just there's a character, there's a connection that like your best customers pay you the most, the easiest to work with, they have the best results from working with you. Everything about it is really great. And then like there's a certain group of customers where they don't see nothing you do seems to work. They're always dissatisfied. They don't actually pay you a lot of money. It's just a wear on your business. You got to be super intentional about what clients that you pick and making sure that they're a really good fit for what you're doing. Because it's just going to slow down everything else. Dissatisfied customers will drain your business in all kinds of different ways. Now, sure, there could be some that are dissatisfied because you didn't do your job and, you know, you maybe messed up and you got to go back and fix it. Okay. But there tends to be certain customers that they're just not the right, again, going back, culture fit. They're not the right, their needs and what they're looking for don't match you. Be super specific. This is what we do best. This is who we do it for. This is the problem we solve. This is who we solve the problem for. Be super specific, super zone in on that. The more defined you can be about those two things, like this is exactly the problem we solve for the people we solve it for, you're going to be in a better position to get customers that are satisfied, pay you what you deserve, stay with you a long time, leave positive reviews, actually create advocates. When you're just working with any old client because you need the money, that's when it doesn't work out. It's not worth the money at all. It just stops you from going and getting other customers that actually would be the right fit. All right, number 7. I guess I should have numbered these each time. Got a little bulleted list. Don't work with anyone. All right. Here's something I wish I knew. And something to think about. If you're an aspiring entrepreneur, you want to build a legit business. I need you to be aware of the fact that scaling is like the time of greatest risk. It's kind of funny because we think like making money is like the problem in business. And, obviously to some degree, yeah, you need to create the money. You got to create the revenue. But what I didn't realize is how much risk there is in growth. That when you're expanding your business, it's actually a very risky time. And I don't say it to be like, don't grow. It's just you have to be very intentional about the way that you scale. How do you grow? And this goes back to what we talked about earlier. Like, who do you hire? Who are the right people? Am I investing in systems? And am I investing in people? Or am I just buying a ton of advertising? Is there waste in the way that I'm spending? Am I adding people that aren't the right fit just because I'm growing so much? Like, grow, scale, but you need to realize that in that moment of you have to stick to your principles of your core values, your culture, bringing on the right people, bringing on the right new customers. There's a lot of businesses that fail and crash actually in their growth. The way they're acquiring new business, how much money, you see it all the time, especially with like tech companies, tech startups. They get a $300 million seed in their company, and they go and hire 10,000 people, and and all of a sudden there's mass layoffs, all this other stuff. It's obviously on a large scale, but even for your business, like you gotta make sure that the way you're growing and you're scaling fits into all the different things we talked about: your culture, who you're working with, getting the right people in the right place, not taking shortcuts on who you're hiring, what clients you're getting, how you're working with them. Scaling is a risk, so you got to learn how to scale well. It's actually a really good book about scaling. It's called Ready, Fire, Aim. That's the book. Ready, Fire, Aim. I love it. Ready. I said, oh, there's that bubbling again. I pointed. I think this is a new Mac thing. Ready, Fire, Aim. This kind of sounds like entrepreneurship. You're ready, and then you're shooting, and then you aim after. Ready, Fire, Aim. But that's a really great book. It talks about the 4 stages of business, from infancy to adolescence or toddler, adolescence, mature. And it talks about the problems that you have. And that's the thing, is that whole phrase of what got you to where you are is not what's going to get you to the next place. Like, that's the crazy thing. Like, you did all these things, right? Maybe you invested, you bought the stuff, you did the thing, and it got you to where you were, but for you to get to the next stage, it's actually a totally different set of stuff you need to do. Thanks, Crystal. Appreciate you sharing. Yeah, advertising's a big part of it. Again, when you start growing, like, for instance, you start adding people, you got your operational costs are way higher, and you've got to support those operational costs with sales. You know, now all of a sudden it puts more pressure on you to, how do you get revenue? How do you scale? How do you get more advertising? I mean, how do you get more dollars? So you might start investing in poor advertising strategies, again, bringing on new customers. Yeah, but going back to the scaling, the growth. So there's a totally different set of problems you're going to face at each stage. And so the way that you scale and the problems you're solving at different points in scaling is going to vary. And so you got to have a real open mind. And this is where, again, you need to have, I guess this could have been number 9 that I'd add, is get a good support group. You know, and I guess I knew that, but get mentors. Get around people that are way out ahead of you, that have faced problems before you did. Get in groups, learn, read books from people that are beyond you at different stages, and you get as much experience as you can, because where you're going is going to look a lot different than where you were and how you got there. All right, number 8. I kind of mentioned this briefly about skills, but business economics is so important. And I would say, you know, cash flow is king. Cash flow is king. Cash flow is like the lifeblood of your business. And so, you know, that's, I think, one of the issues of some of these, like as I mentioned, you know, heavily invested kind of companies, is you have no cash flow. It's actually just your burn rate. You're actually measuring how much, you're trying to reduce how much money you're losing every single month. It's like a timer ticking down. But for a healthy business, you have to have healthy cash flow. So part of that is you got to be selling. You got to be bringing in dollars. You got to be actually getting customers, and you got to be utilizing that revenue in a smart way. You know, I'm not like completely against all business debt, but don't use debt as a business growth strategy. You may have to take it on certain times for very specific things, but drive cash, use cash, have cash. You know, having a few months worth of payroll in the bank helps you sleep a lot easier at night. It helps you make a lot of what we were just talking about here, better decisions. You make better decisions when you're not under that pressure. So as you're scaling, as you're growing, as you're driving revenue, put yourself in a place where you have the tools, you have the cash flow to invest in the right things, you have time to implement the right people and the right systems and certain things. Cash flow is king. Obviously, all around everything I just mentioned here, it really is like, just know that there's a completely different set of skills to be successful at business than what your product and service is. And you need to invest in those. You need to invest in those skills. You need to get around people who have those skills. You need to have mentors. You need to learn, grow, invest. To be a great entrepreneur, there's actually entrepreneurial skills. Learn those entrepreneurial skills. Invest in those skills. Grow, develop. It's funny, the more your business grows, the more you get disconnected from what you do. I remember that, like the things that I used to do, like, be an expert in Google ads and how you get this and do that other thing. All of a sudden, a few years later, I'm like asking my team, like, where do you get that? How do you do that? You just keep getting more and more disconnected from the work that you actually do. Because it's not the product and the services, it's that you're running a business, you're leading people, you're driving revenue, sales, leadership, people. So if you haven't started a business yet or you're early on, great time to start learning those skills. Great time to start reading those books. If you're in the midst of business and you're growing your business and you're doing it, invest in those skills. Take the time to invest, learn, grow, develop great business skills. Awesome. Well, that's all I got for today. Appreciate you all. Appreciate everybody joining. Thank you for sticking with us on day 7 of our IC Lives out here in Tampa, Florida right now. We'll be back again tomorrow, 12 p.m. Central Time. And really appreciate you. Yeah, take a step today. Take a step today to invest in some business skills. Do something today towards that action. So, awesome. I really appreciate everybody. Thank you guys for joining, and we will be here tomorrow, 12 p.m. Central Time. Thank you so much.